Next meeting will be via Zoom only. We're alternating back and forth just to keep you all confused on whether we're in person or not. And so look, Janet, do you remember what we're doing on that one? I'm blanked.
We were going to have a UTA presentation.
Yes.
To Evergreen, and then we are having land use campus.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm still shifting gears from my board meeting just that I came back over here from. So my brain's a little overloaded. But yeah. So that'll be Zoom only. June will be in person. We're ironing out the final on what that's going to be. I think we're going to have Wilson Tam come back and finish up his presentation on the Story Road, or no, the King Road improvements, because we cut him off because we were running out of time last time. And he's got actually a model to share with people on what King Road's starting to look like, what they're proposing. So that should be a good meeting. I'm going to jump ahead of the steering committee because we haven't discussed this yet, but I think we're going to devote our September meeting to a candidate forum for the runoff. So we'll arrange for Councilmember Candelas and Tam Trong to be sitting right here, regaling us with their philosophies of government and what things they're going to do to fix our city so that we're all happy citizens. So that will be September. Look forward to that. The one thing I would say is we use the steering committee meetings to line up the general meetings because we like to get out ahead of time to get people to come and present. So for instance, Assessor Stone, we got his commitment in November, if I remember right. And we tried to get him for October back in June or July, and he wasn't available. Tried to get him for November because we like him to come and talk around tax time. Assessor, taxes, right? See the linkage? Yeah. So anyway, the steering committee meetings are the best place to get that input. So if you have ideas on who you'd like to see or topics you'd like to hear, let me know or attend the steering committee. We do them in Zoom, second Saturday of the month. So it will be the 4th, 5th, 12th. Can I do math? 6th, 13th, whatever the next Saturday is. It won't be this Saturday, it'll be the following Saturday. If you're interested, just drop me an email. I will send you the Zoom link and you can join us and give us your input. So that's all I have. Do remember to sign in because remember that next year dues are optional if you volunteer enough hours. If you participate, and I think it's on the website, there's a specific number of hours that we require for you to forego paying dues next year. And if you want to pay dues, because you're allowed to, and it's a 501c3 tax deduction, there'll be $25 next year, up from $20 this year. So make sure you sign in because we're keeping track of the hours that you spend interfacing with the DHCRT or volunteering for us. So the week ago Sunday, the Sunday before Easter, we had our first tabling event at the Evergreen Farmers Market. So we had 3 people volunteer to be out there, and they were out there introducing people at the farmers market to the District 8 Community Roundtable, and also to our CERT Community Emergency Response Team work, because Dave Burkhart, who's leading that, was one of those 3 people, and he was out there trying to recruit members. So there's that. Yes, Janet.
How did that go?
Yeah, I was there for, 15, 20 minutes, and there was a fair amount of interaction there. We had some good flyers. They borrowed a canopy from somebody and got it up there so that they weren't getting wet. It was good. And I found a new meat source. I didn't realize there's a Gilroy farm there that's selling meat, and boy, they've got really good meat sticks. So I haven't tried the ribeye yet, but on one of these days I'm going to grill it up. We have Captain Aragon here from SJPD to talk to us a little bit about what's going on in our neck of the city, and then we'll have Assessor Stone make his presentation. So, Captain, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not Captain Aragon. This is Acting Captain Aragon, but for those that don't know me, I'm Captain Sanchez. Up until Sunday, I was the Foothill commander out here, but this last Sunday I got thrusted into a new role, and as a result, Acting Captain Aragon is now taking over as the Foothill captain, and Acting Lieutenant Will Stanfield is taking over as one of the area commanders out here as well. So this is the new three kind of like change that's happened in the last few days. I'm moving on to a different role. I'm helping Acting Chief Joseph kind of in this transition while we search for a new police chief, taking over a lot of what he did as the assistant chief, because doing both jobs would be too hard. So he's having me help him out a little bit. So trying to figure out what I'm doing. I barely knew what I was doing when I was in this role, but now I got to figure out something else. So, but so if those that don't know, we are doing a nationwide search for a new chief. We're looking anywhere between summer to maybe the beginning of fall to have that person identified. I think the official announcement goes out at the end of the week, and we hope to start getting some of the applicants in from all over the country. And then the vetting process will start. Community engagement and city engagement to kind of finalize who that candidate will be. So we hope to have someone identified sooner than later, so we can just move on and start doing some business. But the process is the process. In the meantime, Acting Captain Aragon, if I had anyone to replace me, it would be him. We go back a long way, but he's very familiar with Evergreen and East Side. He grew up on the East Side. He went to Mount Pleasant. I won't steal his thunder. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit. But it is he'll share his information. But he's a great person. You guys are really going to enjoy him. I'm going to be going to a lot of community meetings in the first couple weeks to kind of introduce, do that soft handoff. But I'm always going to be available. It's been an honor and a privilege to be part of the roundtable out here. I'm not necessarily going away. You guys can still reach me. But it's been a privilege to be out here with you guys, so I appreciate it. With that, I will kind of kick it over to Aragon a little bit to introduce himself, and then I'll take it back and talk a little bit about what's happening in D8 in the city. But I'll give it to Aragon.
Thank you for having me. I am Jesse Aragon. A little bit about me. I have been on a few Zoom meetings. So those that were not in attendance, I was born and raised in East San Jose. So Foothill Division, this is my home. I was on a Zoom with Norway Creek. I went to Norway Creek Elementary. So Norway Creek, you know, everything is dear to me. Mount Pleasant High School, I went to Mount Pleasant High School. So that I was on a Zoom last night with Mount Pleasant Neighborhood Association. My grandmother lives right across the street from Silver Creek. So it can go on and on and on. I'm, you know, honored to be in Foothill. Part of, you know, becoming a police officer was, you know, you always, as a young kid, you always say, hey, I could do something, I could do it better. I want to be part of that. And so here I am. And so actually working even as an officer, I always chose to work the East Side. It's always been my home. My family, they still live here. So this is my way of giving back. Everything I wanted to do, I'm doing. So I want to be that resource to you. I will leave my business cards. I wanted to come out, and I'm gonna be at all of these meetings. I'm not gonna promise all of the meetings, but I'm gonna come out to as many as I possibly can, because again, it does matter to me. And again, this is, you know, I want to show that consistency. I want you guys, I don't want you to see just a different face every single time. I want you to see the same face, and that's going to be mine. And what I'll do now is I'll pass it on to my partner in crime. He's going to be the acting lieutenant. So he's out here in Foothill Division as well.
I'll keep it short. Unfortunately, I wasn't raised in San Jose. I was a military transplant, and then when I got out of the military, I joined the police department and continued on with my dream of being a police officer. I was a district sergeant on the East Side and Foothill Division, and I'm familiar with the area, supervising my group of officers during day shift out here, and being asked to step up into the acting lieutenant role right now, and being able to attend the community meetings is also an honor for me. So I'll be a resource out here also. I usually work day shift, so yeah, I'll be out here, and you'll see my face hopefully a lot more.
Janet.
Will, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
Stanfill, Stanfill.
So I know you guys are short on time, so I'll keep it brief so we can get to Mr. Stone. But just a quick overview. In the transition with Acting Chief Joseph, some of the things that the department is looking at doing is we know our staffing has been really thin for a long time. And so how do we leverage the amount of resources we have to be more effective and more efficient? And some of those ideas are, we're looking at redistricting the city. When we had 1,400 sworn, we went from 12 districts to 16 districts, so we could try to disperse them more equitably around the city. But when our staffing levels went in the other direction, 16 districts made it very hard for us to really manage. So we're looking at going back down to 12 and distributing the officers in a more equitable way based on call volume, right? Example would be, you know, an area that has lower call volume may have 4 officers, and an area that has high call volume may also have 4 officers. It's not very equitable. So we're looking at restructuring and redeploying them that way. One of the other things that we're exploring is right now, if an officer makes an arrest and he has to go down to jail to book that individual, sometimes it takes 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours before they can get that prisoner in. It takes that officer off that street for a very long time. And sometimes they'll get rejected and we have to go to the hospital and have to sit with the prisoner at the hospital. And it really impacts our ability in patrol with our staffing levels. So Chief Joseph is looking at creating a jailer program where we create another classification where we have a pre-processing center at the station already that we used when we had a lot more staffing, where officers can come down, process their prisoners, take photographs, fingerprints, and then they would take them to jail. The jailer program essentially would, with this new group of people, basically take the prisoner from the officer, let the officer go back into service, and they would do all the processing. They would then transport them to the jail, and if they got rejected, they'd go also with them to the hospital and sit with them. So it really would let us get the officers back out to handle 911 calls and be more efficient and effective. So those are things that we're looking at doing and exploring. We're trying to also expand the CSO program, or community service officers, to help use them for some of the lower priority calls for service and paper calls that we can use them for. So again, we can have the sworn officers handling more priority calls. So I'm very optimistic with his vision and what we're trying to do to be able to work with what we have to be more effective and efficient. We're also trying to leverage more technology. We've gotten more license plate reader cameras out there. I think with the grant that we got from the state, we're going to probably get in the ballpark of around 450 cameras citywide, which has been great because they've been very, very effective for us. We've solved a lot of crime with them. But just to give you some context, Albuquerque, city of Albuquerque, similar in size, similar in population, give or take. They have 13,000 cameras in their city and a real-time crime center, and they solve crime super fast, and they're very efficient. And we're getting to 450, so we have a long way to go. But what we have has been very effective. So we're going to try to keep trying to lean on technology some more, some software. We already do some data analytics already to look at call volume and where we should deploy resources. So we're trying to do the best with what we have. We're just trying to lean on more resources to do that. So with Chief Joseph there right now, very optimistic so we can get things across the goal line and be more effective. But again, like I mentioned in the beginning, and I know Captain Aragon thinks this way too, you know, real-time intelligence comes in 2 forms, one from data analytics, but the other from the human component, right? Coming to these meetings and hearing from you guys where the problems are. That way he can deploy his resources to the areas where you need them. So That's why these meetings are very important to hear from you guys, so we know where to move the chess pieces on the chessboard to be more effective. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have. Anyone have any specific issues or questions? Janet?
Yeah, I think I emailed Captain Aragon a little bit earlier. There was, it explained a little bit more, and I believe that there was a suspect caught on the Brigade June hit and run fatality day before yesterday.
Yeah, I'll let him talk about it.
First of all, is everybody aware of that accident that happened? Does anybody, I'm sure, okay. So, try to figure out how much information I can release. So this accident happened a couple nights ago. I believe it was around 4 in the morning. Okay, let me back up. So prior to that, there was a vehicle that had been stolen from another part of Foothill Division. This vehicle had been stolen by a juvenile. Okay, police officers were called to a scene within the city, Foothill Division, because this car was doing donuts in the middle of the street. Officers did arrive into that area. The vehicle fled. Right, vehicle takes off at high rate of speed. Officers were unable to keep up with that vehicle. Approximately an hour later, this vehicle is now traveling on Neiman, and the vehicle, I guess, flies through a stop sign. Flies through a stop sign. We're going to say the victim vehicle. It was a male on his way. It appears he was on his way to work. Male in his late 50s. On his way to work. It appears that he may not have stopped for that stop sign either. Not 100%, but he was going through the intersection. And this car, traveling at a very high rate of speed, collides with our victim vehicle. Right away, the suspect vehicle, we're going to call it the suspect vehicle, was traveling with 2 other vehicles, or maybe 3, just a group of other vehicles that were traveling with it. They are able to take that driver out. The driver is injured. They place him into one of the other vehicles, and they leave the scene. Our victim, unfortunately, doesn't survive his injuries, and he is deceased at the scene. What ends up happening is later on, I guess, suspect, I guess, has some pretty significant injuries. These injuries later, he needs some medical attention at that point. Medical attention arrives. I guess they didn't know that police, we do respond a good majority of the time to some of these medical emergencies depending on the severity or circumstances. This particular case, PD did respond. They were able to connect these dots. Okay, and this person was related to that collision. So connecting the dots, this person has been arrested, and that is right now, that's the extent of the information that I can release right now. So it's unfortunate that we did, somebody on his way to work. Again, it's something that, not just because of the area, because I grew up, but I have family that go to work. I always tell, those that have children, that's the scariest thing for me, is letting my kids, knowing that they're driving on the streets. It's just something that we have to be cognizant of. I was on my way over here. I'm literally sitting at the red light, and a car just blows the red light right in front of me. And so I'm not in my police vehicle, but it's just right in front of me. It's raining. It was just a miracle that another car was not making its turn, because I was the first car, I would have witnessed a pretty violent collision. So it's just something just to be aware of. Know your surroundings. I always tell my kids, when the light is green, don't just go. At a stop sign, don't just go. So, ma'am?
You mentioned that you, or not you, but the police was chasing that vehicle earlier.
Yeah, the vehicle immediately took off. I don't know the specifics. I just know that an attempt to stop the vehicle was made and the vehicle continued. So a lot of times what happens is officers, supervisors, they're monitoring as soon as, you know, part of, I guess you would say, our protocol, right, is we have to put out pertinent information. Hey, there's a vehicle taking off. This is the speed. This is what's going on. And a supervisor, they weigh the severity of everything that's going on, right? And so I can't say what happened, right? But it was to the point where it was terminated right away. That whatever he was doing, his evasive moves, actions, they terminated like, we're not gonna chase this guy. And I've seen too many times, it's never a good outcome, right? Because these guys are trying to get away for a reason, and they're gonna do pretty much anything to get out of that situation.
We do have, I mean, to answer your question, we do have our own policy to what Captain Aragon was saying that really kind of governs what we can chase for and what we cannot chase for. And when the supervisors are weighing out those criteria, a lot of it is the severity of the crime, like what crime do we have? Most of the time it has to be a violent felony for us to be able to continue that pursuit. And even when we do, we're still constantly weighing all these things like traffic conditions, time of the day, weather conditions, and those factor in whether or not we continue. So yes, we do have some policies around that.
Where is the suspect now? Is he in custody?
As of right now, he is still in custody, yes.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I may not know my story about it. Please watch it down below the layout. I recently got to the council, and so I've been grieving mother for the last 699 days. I've been prevented from being able to see my child because of corruption in Santa Clara County. My judge that recently retired, she had an affair with our district attorney, and she was going to try to keep her retirement, yet it's been over almost 2 years I haven't seen my son. Now I've decided I'm going to go back into work as an executive assistant, office manager, worked at Google, Facebook and stuff. But I have 3 restraining orders against me now. And so how do we go back to work when I have all of these what we refer to as silver bullets? These are, attorneys are trained to get these silver bullet restraining orders to custody cases. And so from one now I have 3. I can assure you I'm not a dangerous person. And so like, what's your advice as officers? Like, how do I get through this and how do I fix it? So I can
It's a great question. It's going to take me a long time to answer that. So I know he's got some other things. So how about we talk offline and I can give you some specifics.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And Captain Sanchez, I want to thank you personally. You've been a great asset to the community, and you're a pretty darn good painter too. So I hope, I was going to say, I hope you come to the next painting in the park that they have. Thank you for your service, all 3 of you. Appreciate it. All right, tonight we are lucky to have County Assessor Larry Stone come to talk to us about the state of the county and anything else he wants to talk about. We didn't give him any guidelines, but Larry has been the longest serving assessor, probably 29 years, and he claims he's currently the longest serving elected official. I haven't validated that, but since I know what he does for a living, he's probably right, since he has to assess things. So, Assessor Stone, thank you very much for joining us, and I think we have you queued up and everything. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Well, I know I'm the assessor, and I also know it's tax day coming soon, but I didn't know that I needed police protection when I got here. But I feel very I'm as safe as I've been in a long time, so thank you guys. Well, the last time I spoke to you, I think was 2018, so it's been a while. So I want to reflect on, I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes, and then I'll be glad to answer anything that you ask me about that has to do with taxes or anything else that I might know about. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the local economy, real estate markets, what's going on in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County, and relate it in some respects to what's going on in the national economy. So, COVID, I'll just back up a little bit. COVID inserted a level of uncertainty that made normal economic analysis very difficult. Silicon Valley, as we all know, is a global economy that made economic analysis very difficult, but it's a local economy of high-risk venture capital. When times are good, they're very, very good. But when things turn down, the descent can be dramatic. It's like when Warren Buffett said, it's only when the tide goes out that you learn who is swimming naked. COVID has been a monumental health and humanitarian crisis of global significance. COVID upended the way the environment that we thought that we knew. COVID painfully impacted the most vulnerable American households, creating serious economic dislocation. Silicon Valley has the highest level of income inequality in the United States, which increased dramatically during COVID. The gaps here between the haves and the have-nots have increased significantly, and including racial disparities. The median net worth in the U.S. climbed 37% between 2019 and 2022. At the same time, however, median household income increased just 3%. COVID disrupted and impacted the way we engage with others in social activities, how we interacted with others in the workplace, how we traveled, how we shopped, even how we bought groceries back then. Business investment and retail sales, home construction, exports, consumer and government spending all reached record levels of decline during COVID. As the county began to recover, however, from COVID, about the last half of 2021, Americans started spending at record levels. First on the good side of the economy, and then on the services side. So the economy really came roaring out of the COVID recession. Consumers couldn't stop spending, and prices couldn't stop rising. Consumer spending is the primary driver of the U.S. economy, accounting for 70% of economic activity. The U.S. economy ran headfirst into the perfect storm of high demand and low supply, soaring prices, and rising interest rates. Robust consumer spending combined with widespread product and worker shortages created the highest inflation since the 1980s. Consumer demand was simply greater than the economy's ability to react to that demand. Inflation is nothing more than too many dollars chasing too few goods. Inflation wiped out 76% of the gains in wages and salaries which flowed to American workers during COVID. At the same time, the cost of living inflated by 19%. The Fed has increased interest rates, as we all know, 11 times in an attempt to rein in both wages and prices to tame persistently high inflation. Suddenly, in the middle of last year, prices started to drop faster than expected. So much so that wage gains are now outstripping price increases. In February, the consumer price index was 3.2%, well below the 9% in the mid-2022, but still higher than the Fed would like. They're looking for about 2% as the objective. By most measures, the U.S. economy, while funky, remains strong. The job market is surging, and unemployment is at its lowest level in decades. The labor market continues to defy all expectations, including 36 consecutive months of job growth, giving the Americans power to keep spending, which is a problem. Our economy is resilient in the face of all this turmoil. It looks like the Fed may be successfully engineering the talked about soft landing. The story is different for the technology sector, however. Since mid-2022, high-profile tech companies, including PayPal, Google, Amazon, Salesforce, Microsoft, Meta, Intel, Oracle, Roku, Twitter, Seagate, and Cisco, and several others have announced large-scale job cuts, more than 36,000 job cuts in total. The collapse of 4 banks added to the uncertainty. A few small and mid-sized banks may be on the brink of failure as bank reserves against delinquent commercial loans, which are increasing dramatically, continue to decline. So what are some of the top-line economic indicators of this right at this moment? Well, a solid job market, which wages have increased 4.5%, unemployment at 3.7%, very low. The economy has created 2.7 million jobs with nearly 8.8 million job openings. You know, right now there's 1.5 job openings for every unemployed worker in this country. That's not bad. California has finally recovered all the jobs it's lost during COVID. The reshoring of manufacturing back to the U.S., locally assisted by the CHIPS Act, is having a positive impact, particularly locally, with our high-tech environment. A more serious concern than California's 5.3 unemployment rate, which was what it was last month, actually in February, is the state's contracting labor supply. California has added more than 440,000 jobs since the pandemic, yet there are still 168,000 fewer workers in California's labor force today. California's employers and public agencies are dealing with an endemic of the lack of workers from unskilled to highly educated. Teachers, nurses, law enforcement, skilled construction workers, even fast food workers are in demand and short supply. Can't get enough of them. Silicon Valley's labor force is the lowest it's been since June of 2022. 4 million U.S. workers quit their jobs in 2022, and 3 million dropped out of the labor force altogether. That's unprecedented. This year, as workers sense that the job market is not what it was a couple of years ago, the number of workers leaving their jobs has declined significantly. COVID also gave people time to rethink their lives and their careers, and many have decided to ditch previous jobs in industries like restaurants and hospitality for higher pay and benefits in transportation and warehousing, providing a more consistent work schedule. And then there's quiet quitting, people trying to balance work life with real life. And finally, retirements accelerated during COVID. The U.S. labor market is both resilient and perplexing. For example, the Gen Z generation is smaller than the millennial generation. Older adults outnumber children for the first time in U.S. history. Life expectancy in the U.S. has dropped from the lowest to its lowest level since 1996. California's population fell to 1.2% between 2020 and 22, and the Bay Area's population dropped 3% during the same period. Universal pre-K education would allow more women to enter and re-enter the labor force. The long-term future of the job market is somewhat clouded. As many baby boomers have left the labor force than millennials born after 1980 and Gen Zers born after 1996 are entering the labor force. In the long term, this could have serious consequences. For example, baby boomers grew up in households of 3 to 4 children. Demographers tell us that millennials are having an average of 1.2 children. Consequently, there won't be sufficient Gen Zers, the children of millennials, to maintain a stable workforce in the future. We have a serious decline in population. Real immigration reform, allowing increased legal immigration, underscore legal immigration, combined with robotics, is the only solution to meet our future workforce demands. Silicon Valley needs increased immigration. We simply need more foreign workers here. Americans, however, have demonized immigration and the political rhetoric that goes along with it. Fortunately, in the Bay Area, we're faring a little bit better. With the easing of restrictions by the Biden administration, immigrants from other countries have increased 174% recently in the Bay Area. Economic and business cycles can be nasty things, of course. So where are we today? How would I describe today's economy? Well, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and certainly unpredictable. Geopolitical problems, often out of our control, also create additional uncertainty. For example, attacks against merchant ships in the Red Sea, a key transit route for global commerce, can quickly impact the cost of goods overnight. But as Warren Buffett says, volatility can also create opportunity. Long term, the Bay Area economic challenges remain the same as they always been: housing, transportation, and economic competitiveness. California is a large, diverse economy, and that diversity is our strength because it creates a broader economic base. Silicon Valley's economy is structured to resist long-term declines in economic activity. Big tech has a special kind of resilience because innovation is the driving force behind our success. The Silicon Valley's economy, measured in terms of GDP, jumped a whopping 13% in the last 3 years. So things are going in the right direction. Economic uncertainty and COVID didn't stop venture capital investments, however. Venture capital, led by a record number of mega deals in the Bay Area, accounted for 40% of all VC investments in the U.S. in 2020 and 2021. The Bay Area accounted for 24% of all tech startups in the U.S. 20,000 patents were granted to Silicon Valley companies in 2022. Fast forward to 2023, it's a different story. The number of VC deals dropped 44%, and the money raised dropped 80% from a 5-year average, the lowest level in 10 years. Long-term, the outlook of Silicon Valley economy is bright long-term. Electric vehicles, battery technologies, artificial intelligence, and clean energy will keep Silicon Valley high on the list of economic successes for some time to come. So what are some of the economic implications of the pandemic on our real estate markets? Well, the most obvious, the travel, hospitality, and leisure sectors. They were hit first and hit hardest. Hotels that depend primarily on business travelers, which is the largest source of hotel revenue, have been slow to recover. In San Francisco, business travel is down 40%, with hotel occupancy at just 68%. The lack of conferences and conventions, in addition to the decline of international travelers, is the reason for that. 2 of San Francisco's largest Union Square hotels have defaulted on their loans. New hotel investments plunged 48% in Northern California and 56% nationwide. In Santa Clara County, hotel investments suddenly stopped in 2023 after a torrent of new hotels in 2021 and 22. Hotel bookings in San Jose are down, and restaurants are even worse. The National Restaurant Association reports that 38% of restaurants in the U.S. are not profitable. Bloomberg reported that 11,000 restaurants, more than 10% of all restaurants in the U.S., closed permanently. Only in resort areas like Tampa, Phoenix, Las Vegas, San Diego, and Miami has hotel performance surged since COVID. The airlines and hospitality industries are dependent upon each other. As businesses become more comfortable with Zoom and webinars, this could have a more permanent impact on business travel and ultimately on lodging. Next, the retail sector is most perplexing. The increase in prevalence of online shopping versus traditional brick and mortar stores all point in the same direction. that online sales continue to grow exponentially faster than in-store sales. Open-end suburban retail is relatively strong, fueled by stronger than expected consumer spending, which I mentioned earlier. Top-tier malls are recovering nicely, and that reflects the resiliency of consumer spending, which continues. Lower-tier malls, not so much. The French company, the principal owner of Valley Fair and Oak Ridge malls right here in San Jose, which is the largest owner of retail malls in the world, announced that it will divest the company of all malls in the U.S. over the next 3 years. The company announced just last month that they are in escrow to sell Oak Ridge Mall to a local buyer. Well, Valley Fair will follow. The Paseo, a 600,000 square foot, 120 store mall on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, covering 3 city blocks, was acquired via a deed in lieu when the owner defaulted on the loan. San Diego's Horton Plaza, a 900,000 square foot open air 5L retail mall encompassing 6.5 city blocks, has been redeveloped as a mixed-use tech and life science center. And finally, Westfield Mall in San Francisco surrendered the city's biggest shopping center back to the lender. Macy's, and you just read this recently, announced it is closing 150 stores, including its flagship store on Union Square in San Francisco. UBS projects that 50,000 brick-and-mortar retail stores will close in the next 5 years. The average retail store size in the U.S. is the smallest in 17 years. The U.S. economy is simply overstored. A sturdy job market, steady gains in real income, and a healthy consumer spending, both online and in-store, have boosted retail sales recently. How long that will continue, I don't know. The urban retail market continues to struggle. However, strip retail centers in suburban areas are rising in value as people shift where they live and where they shop. Traditional shopping centers, particularly older malls, are being repurposed to consumer centers with a mixture of uses, including fitness and health and wellness, co-working operations, or being converted to things like affordable housing, distribution centers for e-commerce, classrooms, churches, museums, and even transitional space for the homeless. Local elected leaders must give up their love affair with retail shopping centers for the sales tax revenue, as traditional in-store retail is a declining enterprise. With the inevitability of autonomous cars, vast surface parking lots present an opportunity for housing development. Now, the millennials are the driving force behind e-commerce. I think we know that. Millennials grew up in a one-click world where speed and convenience was expected, indeed demanded. The barrage of retail bankruptcies, store closures, and diminishing revenues. It has become a survival of the fittest. As name brand, debt-ridden retailers, and we know their names, all of them. Circuit City, Mervyn's, Borders Books, Loman's, Sports Authorities, Linens and Things, Toys R Us, Payless Shoes, Forever 21, Tuesday Morning, Orchard Supply, J. Crew, Lord & Taylor, Brooks Brothers, Stein Martin. Pier 1 Imports, Sears, and Bed Bath & Beyond recently continued to disappear or file for bankruptcy. One retail leader described it as the 3 C's: closures, consolidations, and contractions. Excess Space Solutions Company projects that retailers are expected to downsize their storefront space by 40 to 50% over the next 10 years. Nevertheless, e-commerce sales still represent only 19% of total retail sales, while 4 in every 5 U.S. consumers regularly shop online, and 40% of those online shoppers buy something on Amazon once a month. In my household, it's more like once a week. Right? At the same time, we are seeing a transformational turn in the retail industry. It's called Clicks to Bricks. Established e-commerce retail brands have been opening retail brick-and-mortar locations, benefiting from their e-commerce brand and success, building a retail presence, and improving their distribution footprint, which is most important. So are there any winners in this whole thing? Well, yes, there are. Obviously, Walmart, Target, Costco, and Amazon. They've succeeded very well. Amazon's market cap, and you'll find this amazing because I found it amazing. Amazon's market cap is greater than the market cap of the other top 15 retailers combined. And those other retailers are Walmart, Costco, Target, Nordstrom's, Best Buy, and 10 others. Their market cap is bigger than all of those companies combined. Many believe that Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook are abusive monopolies and that our markets are no longer competitive. Google has a 92% market share and accounts for 22% of the S&P 500 all by itself. Apple owns 4 of the 5 biggest apps and 79% of the smartphone profits. Facebook has 2 billion subscribers, nearly as many as Christianity has followers. Apple recently became a $3 trillion company, greater than the GDP of the United Kingdom. 3 companies, Google, Apple, and Facebook, account for 20% of all tech jobs in Silicon Valley. Well, global unrest, a volatile stock market, tech layoffs, and a 60% increase in mortgage rates, a 23-year high, has pushed monthly mortgage payments past what buyers can afford to spend. The Bay Area home sales plummeted, declining 24% last year, the lowest in nearly 30 years. And then suddenly, just last month, it increased 20%. And I read today it was a little bit higher than that in March. But new listings and for sale inventory remain historically low. Multiple buyers for fewer homes for sale have caused prices to increase 11.8%. So if you have fewer homes and more people trying to buy them, prices go up, but inventory and sales go down. Locally, the housing crisis is more, around here at least, a supply problem than an affordability problem. Bay Area home prices are more volatile than the national average. They rise faster during boom times and fall further during recessions because our region is tied to the boom-bust tech sector. With astronomical home prices and high interest rates, wannabe home buyers are forced to rent, which should drive the demand, I would think, for apartments. Many potential home buyers have concluded that the economics of renting is better right now than buying, including the newest trend, building single-family homes for rent. As thousands of new home apartment units hit the Bay Area market, concessions such as free rent and free parking are increasing. Now, the jury is out on the long-term impact of teleworking on the office market. More and more employers are mandating in-person work. Only 6% of a recent job postings offer remote work, down from 45%. Intense networking is an important component of Silicon Valley's ecosystem, right? It's hard to successfully network and collaborate on Zoom. San Francisco and San Jose are at the very bottom of all major cities returning to office. Miami is about 70%, New York is about 45%, we're around 20%. Just a couple of years ago, Class A office buildings were the darling of commercial and real estate investments. Remember that? Well, not anymore. Rising vacancy rates, declining rental rates, the absence of big lease deals, and the continuation of hybrid and remote working has driven office vacancy in Silicon Valley to 27.5%. Downtown San Jose's vacancy is 36%. In San Francisco, the office vacancy is a whopping 37%. Listen to this. 70% of San Francisco office tenants did not renew their lease when it came due. 70%. And 1/3 of those tenants who did renew their lease have downsized their space. Boston Properties halted construction for the second time on Platform 16, a 1.1 million square foot office building right here in San Jose. The company stopped construction when COVID hit in 2020, resumed construction in 2022, and suspended it again amid the feeble office market here in Silicon Valley. And it's going to be a long time before they complete that building. A 12-story, 325,000 square foot building on the corner of Market Street and West St. John sold for 77% less than the price that was paid just 5 years ago. 77% decline in 5 years. There's increasing concern that the size of the commercial loan portfolios, many regional banks may present a significant risk of failure. $1 trillion of commercial real estate debt is coming due this year alone, an increase of 40%. Much of it will have to be refinanced at higher interest rates since commercial property values have declined during the same period 22%. A bright spot? AI. Maybe that doesn't surprise you. AI leasing is a new and welcome source of tenant demand in Silicon Valley, in the Silicon Valley office market. Small businesses continue to grapple with inflation, high interest rates, and labor shortages. There's an increased interest in converting, and you've read about this, I think, converting vacant office buildings to residential use. Well, I'm sorry, but I believe that most modern office buildings with large floor plates are not physically or economically convertible. Older Class B and C offices and retail properties may be possible for conversion. And finally, I'd like to finally listen to this. Converted vacant office buildings into vertical farms growing fruits and vegetables is possible. You're going to see more of it because that is convertible. And finally, listen to this. Converting vacant office buildings is a possibility. Silicon Valley's industrial and warehouse markets recorded vacancy rate of 3.9% at the end of the year, reflecting a difference in the workplace dynamics between industrial jobs and office jobs, because industrial jobs must be more and more provided on site rather than remotely. Data centers are hot and getting hotter. Demand is strong and vacancies are low. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google are demanding more space, more and more space in data centers. I didn't know this, but AI requires 5 times more power and space than traditional tenants in data centers. 5 times as much. 5G, and I just read the other day, we're expecting 6G within 5 years. Think about that. LiDAR, e-commerce streaming services, GPS, cloud computing, and cameras on autonomous automobiles will generate terabytes of data every day, which is good for Silicon Valley. There are 550 million emails and posts every minute. 550 every minute. Million every minute. The restraints are available power, which is serious restraint for data centers, and surprisingly water, because it's used for cooling the computers in large amounts. The increase in online shopping has created a demand for more logistic facilities as consumers shift from in-store purchasing to online, and consumers demand faster shipment, often same-day delivery. E-commerce distribution centers must be created closer to city centers. And then there's the reverse logistics, the need to facilitate an increase in the number of returns that are a result of e-commerce. This will fuel, I believe, continued demand for logistic facilities. COVID also took a toll on tax revenues. You know, government spending is an important component of a healthy economy. There is a connection between economic growth and tax revenues. When tax revenues decline, so does government spending, and that does have an impact upon the economy. McKinsey and Company analyzed the impact of automation on job growth and concluded that 40% of all jobs could be replaced by the current methods of automation by 2030. That's just 6 years away. Goldman Sachs economists estimate that 1/4 of all jobs will be completely eliminated by AI. AI, in addition to teleworking, accounts for a significant portion of the existing office vacancies that we have in major metropolitan cities. And finally, I'd like to comment on the concern over the Great California Exodus, also known as the doom loop, if you read that. While it's a concerning trend, it's not a crisis. From 2020 to 2023, 800,000 Californians moved out of the state, and 263,000 Californians moved to California from other states. That's a net loss of 538,000 people. Only 1.4% in a state, 39 million people. Hardly a crisis. What is disturbing, however, that those fleeing the state took $29 billion of taxable income with them, compared with the taxable income of new Californians brought to the state. That's a 30% reduction. San Jose lost 50,000 residents in 2020, dropping San Jose from the 10th largest city in the U.S. to the 12th largest city in the U.S. 60% of employees who left San Jose and Silicon Valley stayed in Northern California, primarily for cheaper housing. And there are many things that affect the loss of population besides Californians fleeing to Texas and Arizona. A decrease in birth. California's birth rate is at an all-time low. Reduced immigration, the rise of death, many COVID-related, and fewer people coming to California and Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, only 4 major companies left California. By and large, their workforce didn't follow. Tesla is still manufacturing automobiles in Fremont. Recently, California passed Germany as the 4th largest economy in the world. One state is now the 4th largest economy in the world. Now, you never want to lose population, particularly because California recently lost a congressional seat. A crisis? No. A concerning trend? Probably. The global attraction of big tech in Silicon Valley is not going to contract. 80% of all tech R&D jobs occur right here in Silicon Valley, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So I think the demise of Silicon Valley and California is grossly exaggerated. So maybe that doom loop I talked about is just a loop-de-loop. So these are my observations today, but in this economy, tomorrow could be completely different. So you have to stay tuned. And now, if you'd like to ask me any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring you back to your boring daily life.
Yeah.
And that is assessing property. If you own a large lot and you subdivide, you leave the second part that you subdivided unbuilt.
Right.
What does that do to your property tax?
Is there any change in ownership?
No.
It doesn't affect it.
So you can own both parcels.
Right. If
Two tax bills or one?
we only reassess stuff on a transactional basis. So if you sell the half that you did, then that half would be reassessed to market value at the time of the transaction. But just subdividing a property with the same ownership is not going to change, is not going to change the value.
Would it cause a reassessment of both properties?
No.
Because the original property lost a piece of its land.
Well, In other words, you subdivided and you gave part of it away or sold it? Is that what you're saying?
Let's say you did.
Well, sure. I mean, if you sell a piece of property, again, if you sell a portion of that, does that reduce the market value of what's left? If it doesn't, then there's no change.
But you would reassess it.
Huh?
It would get reassessed based on the fact that you sold a piece of it off.
Yeah, let's say you have two parcels of property, both the same size, and you sell off a quarter of one of those, right? I mean, that's what the kind of a thing you're talking about. Does the value of what's left that has the home on it or whatever it is, would that sell for less because you had one quarter of the other half gone? Probably not. If it did, but chances are there's nobody, I mean, the value of that thing, if you put it on the lot, on the market, somebody's not going to come along and say, I'm going to pay less for it now because it only has 25% of the lead. It's the market value of the property. It's not what you think would happen. It's what happens in the real world. Question? Yeah. Yeah.
This is just land.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You hang on to it for whatever, 10 years.
Yeah.
Then you go to sell just the land portion.
Mm-hmm.
Do they assess the whole thing at that point? And then let's say that's worth 25% of the overall value and you keep the property?
Good question. The answer is the assessor is required to assess property at its fair market value. So if you bought the main property 10 years ago, the market value of that property would have to drop below the assessed value, and chances are the assessed value is substantial. I'll give you an example. I bought my house in Sunnyvale in 1975 for $85,000. 4-bedroom, 3-bath home. Nice home, but still, upgraded tract home, right? It's assessed at $275,000. Zillow says it's worth $3 million. The value of my house would have to drop below $275,000 before I got anything. So I could divide it up, and it still would be worth more than $275,000. So remember, the assessors focus on market value. So if your house goes from $85,000 to $3 million, it's not going to change the value of that. And when it goes for $500,000, the assessor will assess it at $500,000. Doesn't affect the yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry to beat this dead horse, but if you sell the part that has the house on it, but keep the piece of empty land,
Yeah.
that has no value because you didn't sell it?
No, we would then assess that property that we would draw a conclusion on the fair market value of that
So you would
property.
so when you sell the main house, the
Right.
main piece,
Right.
you're going to get whatever value is that.
Right.
That's going to get reassessed.
Yeah. The other would be based upon vacant land.
Yeah, we vacant land, but then they'd have to assess it because they want to build it for it.
No, it would be $275,000 or less, right? And then you sell it.
We'd assign the values between the two sides and look at the assessed value of it. I'm getting here. It's always dangerous for the assessor to make any projections on anything before it happens.
So you had a point in your presentation that retail sales are declining because of online sales, which means the retail sales tax in the municipalities is declining. What backfills that? Or do they just lose some sales, or do they cut deals like San Jose did with eBay to back to them, or?
Well, the head of economic development of San Jose spoke to our Rotary Club on Wednesday. And I didn't get a chance to answer questions, but she was talking about all these vacant storefronts. And basically what I said to her afterwards, I said, that's a problem of the city. They build high-rise office building. They build a condo project or an apartment complex. And they gotta put storefronts on the basis of it. Even though the market says there's no market for storefronts, because they believe that if they build it, it'll lease up. And they want the sales tax revenue. And as I told them, that a vacant storefront doesn't generate any sales tax revenue. So they got to get out of for their love affair. Build an office building and build the office down to the floor, like they do in that they've done in San Francisco. It's a pipe dream. Well, we'll just put the storefront there because we need the sales tax revenue. So now what they're doing, I just learned this on Wednesday, is they're offering virtually free rent to retailers that can't afford the storefront to come into to operate businesses in these vacant storefronts that shouldn't have been built in the first place. But that's the kind of mindset sometimes that elected officials have and politicians have about what they should do. They believe that if they do something, it's going to happen. And there's too many, you just drive around and look at the failures.
Must be some assessment challenges when you've got a property that you're essentially having to give free rent, so you're having to give it away. How much value does it really have to assess?
Right. Well, right now, I mean, I've been in the real estate investment development business before I was the assessor for about 35 years. And I wish you'd have been here because I was just talking about the stupidity of some of the things that the city of San Jose did. But around storefronts on vacant office buildings. So what was your question again?
Well, I was just wondering what that does to the assessments when you hear you've got these properties that you're essentially having to give away. Really, the value should
I was telling you that. So in my tenure over almost 50 years, I guess, I've seen ups and downs. I saw the S&L crisis in 2000, the dot-com bust the S&L crisis in 1990s and 91, where the people were giving back office buildings and shopping centers back to the federal government to take them over before they went under. The dot-com bust in the year 2000, which was primarily a Silicon Valley a technology bust. The Great Recession in 2008, which was a residential, all because of stupidity. I mean, back in 1990, I could buy an office building and borrow almost as much as I paid for it. The same thing happened in 2008, where you could buy a house with no job, you could lie about your income, and people think that's going to go on forever. And it almost brought this country down, the whole country down, because of that. Then we have the COVID crisis, which is unrelated to any type of property, but certainly a medical issue. And now we're going into it again. But this is a commercial property reduction. Residential properties have stayed fairly constant. There's not a lot of inventory. There's not a lot of transactions, which affects the income that my office generates from these things. But it's still strong. But these vacant office buildings, the stuff I gave you, the amount of vacancy in office buildings and shopping centers and all that kind of stuff impacts the value. So we have lots of cases, what she mentioned back there, where the the market value has dropped below the assessed value. I mean, you read about this every single day. Guy bought an office building for $70 million, and the seller, or the foreclosure, I don't remember what it was, bought it, you know, for $130 million 5 years ago. So now we're getting a lot of commercial properties that are making the case, justifiably, that that my property is no longer worth what it's assessed for. Even though I bought it for substantially more, you assess it at the time for the market value, which is what I paid for it normally, and now it's way down here. So we are reducing the assessed value on those, and there'll be a lot of them this year. That impacts local government, city councils, county, schools. You know, over 50% of all property tax revenue goes to public education. 7% to community college and 44% to K through 12 schools. So it doesn't come to the county. You know, about 18% of it comes to the county, about 14% comes to the 15 cities, 10% to pay off the debt of redevelopment agencies, 7% to special districts like the water district and the fire district and so forth. But over half of property tax revenue goes to schools. Yeah.
So you portray an interesting dynamic for us baby boomers that robotics are going to be changing our diapers in the future. Interesting, but my question is, do you foresee any type of relaxation on capital gains? I know, I realize people are holding on to homes and moving out and still holding on and keeping them empty in this area.
I don't, because I don't deal with federal taxation. It's all local properties tax stuff. To suggest, however, I'm just thinking politically, not that I have any inside information about it, but you know, for the federal government to reduce capital gains taxes, I don't think that's going to happen.
I didn't think so either, but I had to try.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I wanted to ask about Proposition 19.
I know.
Because during the 2008
Yeah.
bought another house, and so right now, and first of all, I was reading it, I'm not a celebrity, I'm not an out-of-state, all these rich, I'm just a self-made person.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I now have 3 properties, this one in Sacramento, one in San Diego, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 windows, I have 3 children, so I have 3 houses and I have 3 children. So when I did my trust, it was that each kid, if I gifted each kid one house, each kid got Prop 13 benefits. But after Prop 19 went through, only my San Jose house kid gets a benefit. My other 2 are out.
Well, I'm not sure that's true, but you can still transfer your principal residence, yeah, to your kids. So the whole, yeah. But it had to be your principal residence before Prop 19. Yes, it did. It always had to be your principal residence. Huh? 58 said you transfer your principal residence, only your principal residence, to parent to child or child to parent, and in a few cases from grandparents to grandchild. But it had to be your principal residence, and that's never changed.
That's not how I understood it. I thought it,
Yeah.
as long as you owned it.
No, never happened.
I want to change that rule. Can you help me?
Prop 19 changed it in the other direction, so I don't think it's going to. Yeah, what Prop 19 did, let me just give you a little history. The realtors, Prop 90 and Prop 60 allowed a homeowner over the ripe old age of 55 to transfer their principal residence now, to another home in the same county. That happened in every county. And then Prop 90 allowed it by local option in other counties, but only 10 counties took advantage of that out of 58. So the realtors wanted to have what I call a universal Prop 90. You should be able, if you're over the age of 55, to transfer your principal residence to any county in the state. So they put Proposition 5 or Proposition 15, I don't know, in the 2008 ballot. The LAO, the legislative analysts of the state, said if that passed, that the state would lose $1 billion a year in lost property tax revenue. So the schools and labor got together and told the realtors, they already qualified it for the ballot. They said, if you put that on, if you support that, we'll take it down because we're going to lose $1 billion. So the realtors gave up. It failed on the ballot because nobody supported it, and it failed about 60-40. So the realtors had a problem. They still wanted to get a universal Prop 90 and to go in anywhere, but they had to find $1 billion. That's when they went after Proposition 58 as the source of the $1 billion that that the state was losing on a universal Prop 90. So what they did in the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, the stuff they put out when they were trying to undo Proposition 19 was completely false. They said it's a death tax. You don't have to die to take advantage of it. Okay. They said you're no longer allowed to transfer your home to your principal residence to your children. You can do that now, and you could do it before. The only difference was that your kids had to live in it. And that was to prevent creating the family home going to the kids and they turn it into a rental property. It was a famous expose, I guess you'd say, the LA Times did, and they took Lloyd Bridges, who had a beautiful home in Malibu on the ocean with access to a private beach, and he died, gave his home to his wife. His wife died, and she gave it to Bo and Jeff Bridges, and I think they had a sister. They never lived there. They were using it as a rental property. They made $16,000 a month, and this is about 8 years ago, paid $5,000 a year in property taxes. So what's fair about that? It's not transferring the home to your kids, it's creating a rental property for your kids. Now you could imagine that they could pass that on to their kids, and you would have a property in 2050 that had a 1975 tax base. That nobody can explain to me that that's fair. And also, which a little known part, is that Prop 58 allows not only to you transfer your principal residence to your kids, but other property assessed on $1 million a year. So if you had a shopping center that had assessment of $1 million, but it was worth $25 million, huh? If you had a other property, it didn't even have to be one; it could be several. And had $1 million of assessed value. Even though if you owned it for 25 years, it could be worth $25 million. You could also transfer a $25 million shopping center along with your principal residence to your kids. So who loses? Remember what I said. 50% of property tax revenue goes to the schools. So anytime a $25 million shopping center or office building, along with a house that they could maintain, rent it for $16,000 a month for $5,000. Who's the loser? The schools. And then people bitch about the quality of schools, and then they create that kind of an environment.
So, okay, so I got to question that, because schools that are revenue, what used to be called revenue limited, are getting their money from the state. It doesn't matter what the property taxes are in the area. They don't get squat from the area. Whatever money would have normally gone to schools might go to the state. But the bottom line is, it's the state who guarantees the ADA per student. Only basic age schools lose out.
Yeah, and in this area, there's a lot of them.
There aren't very many. Not in the South Bay. There might be Cupertino. There might be a couple of
Los Altos, Palo Alto, Cupertino, Saratoga.
all the ones that get 20 grand per ADA.
Well, sure, because they have a high tax value, so they're paying the higher taxes.
Meanwhile, Evergreen, which we're in, gets 10,000 per student. So it doesn't matter what happens with the property taxes here. We get the minimum amount from the state.
Yeah, but the state has to eat that. I mean, if you're trying to make the case that transferring wealthy properties to wealthy people maintaining an old tax base, if that's what you're saying.
But it's affecting regular people too. We're not Jeff Bridges.
Well, no, look at.
We're not, these rich people.
Well, I told you my house was worth $3 million, right? So I can't transfer it to my kids because they don't want to live there. So they sell it. Man, I feel sorry for them. $3 million sale price. Should we feel sorry for my kids? Hell no. Huh? Yeah, my kids don't want to live in my house, but that's... Yeah, I mean, of course you transfer wealth and you got to pay taxes on it. That's simple. It's not that bad. What's that? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, it comes from the state, but it comes on, yes. I mean, you're paying for those things. Anytime the government does something, eventually you're going to pay for it. Somebody's going to pay for it. Right. No, it's not on your property tax bill. Yeah. No. Right.
It's already, it comes from, Medical Service Act money, so I think they'll put up a millionaire's tax. So I think it's a form of just a state income tax. I don't think it's a property tax collection. I think you pay it when you pay your property tax bill and you go, or not your property, your state income tax.
Yeah.
Your state income tax. Yeah.
So people vote for this stuff. You know, I mean, I'm not the tax collector, so I just deal with the values, but people think I'm the tax collector. And they say, they complain about how the money is spent. I don't spend the money. You talk to the council members and the mayor and the board of supervisors. All I do, I mean, it's not all, but is we assess value according to the state law, based upon the fair market value, as I indicated, and we apply all exemptions that are legal to those values, and the values go up and down, as we just talked about during the Great Recession. It went down in residential properties, now it's going down in commercial properties, and that's all that we do. But you asked me a question about Proposition 19, and I told you how it happened, and what occurred, what was there before, and what happened afterwards. And I voted for Proposition 19, but I kind of did it holding my nose. In fact, the only reason I really voted for it was that I thought a universal Prop 19 was kind of fair. Why should it be just limited to 10 puppies? If you want to get grandma closer to the grandkids, shouldn't she be allowed to go to any county in the state, not just 10? So that's the reason I voted for Prop 19 mainly. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much. Julie, there's a control sitting on the top upper shelf there that says Sony on it. If you take it off and press it, it'll shut that screen off. Or not. I'll have Gary do it. On the top shelf of the dais that she was on, there's a control, a TV remote control. Says Sony on it. That'll turn that on. It's not tethered, I don't think, but maybe that's it. Okay, press the power button. Thank you. There we go. That got a little annoying flickering back and forth. Oh, gee, I was going to have Councilmember Candelas be the first government person to talk to us, but we'll go to the mayor's office, and come on up and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Rheya. I'm going to be coming in as the D8 liaison for the mayor's office. I'll be taking over Christian's position. I have a little bit of experience in D8 before. I worked with Together SJ neighborhoods, Meadow Fair and Creekside. So that's where I started, and I'm hoping to expand my connections and network out to all the different neighborhood associations. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We do have one event coming up in D8. We have a dumpster day at Creekside. That's happening April 13th at Laurelwood Elementary. So if you guys are interested in stopping by, either to volunteer or if you have some trash to dump, it's fine. You guys have any questions? I'll have my contact information outside if you guys want to get in contact.
Thank you. Welcome. And Supervisor Arenas' office, you want to say anything? Because you're going to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody, my name is David No. I work as a communications aide and also community relations aide for Supervisor Sylvia. Christian, you want to?
Also the newest addition to Sylvia Arenas' team, formerly the mayor, but now I'll be here with the supervisor.
Yeah, you know, we're so happy to be here. This is my first meeting with D8 CRT, but I am going to be your guys' designated liaison for Supervisor Arenas. We might be the newest office at the Board of Supervisors, but we are going to hit the ground running, and we are here to provide any support, any type of engagement that you guys are having, events. We would love to be there. I don't have many updates for you guys, but I do have an update on a referral that we did pass last month. On March 12th, Supervisor Arenas, along with Board President Susan Ellerberg, we did pass new regulations, new guidelines on budget inventory grants. So for those who don't know, budget inventory grants are a source of one-time funding that every supervisory district uses to support community-based organizations, neighborhood associations, and also a lot of community-based groups as well. So the new guidelines is really established to create more transparency with how funding is used. So in a nutshell, these guidelines include an equity metric requiring CBOs to report on the status of how they're using funds. But also it creates better transparency on how the community is able to report back to the county and how they're using those funds. As you guys know, we are in the middle of tax season, and there is, you know, you guys have probably read the news. The county is currently facing a $250 million budget deficit. So these new guidelines on how to create transparency, especially when it comes to budget inventory guidelines, it is a way for us to know how the money is being used, but also how our CBO partners are really using the funding. I can tell you, you know, off the top of my head, a lot of the CBOs are receiving this funding. They're providing direct health services. They are providing direct intervention services. Our service area covers Gilroy, San Martin, Morgan Hill, but we also represent Evergreen, South San Jose, Cambrian. It's the largest district in Santa Clara County. And with these new guidelines, we're really trying to create better transparency. And as the county works through this, daunting budget deficit that we're all going to have to deal with, a lot of departments are going to have to make a lot of tough decisions in regards to staffing, in regards to sourcing. Like I said, I'll be your liaison, and I have my business cards on me as well. If you guys have any other questions, I'm open ears. Yeah.
What's the name of the grant?
Yeah, so the grant that I just talked about, it's called Budget Inventory Grants.
Budget inventory?
Yes, yeah, Budget Inventory Grants, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So this is actually going to the mayor's office and to the county office. Whenever there's a budget deficit, you open up your checkbook and there ain't enough money in there.
Right.
Usually most smart people look at what they've been spending their money on.
Right.
And they check out what the efficacy has been of spending that money. A lot of times people find out that they're spending money on things they don't even know they're spending money on, like that subscription to Netflix that I never use. Okay? Just an example, right?
Right.
When has the county and or the city have gone back to a third party to look at the efficacy of what they've been spending their money on? That's my question.
Right. Like I mentioned before, we did pass a referral on March 12th, and we're requiring every recipient of our budget inventory grants from the county, they're going to report back on how they're spending the money. I will have to defer to my policy director, Patrick McGarity, on any further questions about inventory grants and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I sat on Measure Rheya, which was the rebuild retrofit of the county hospitals.
Right.
They overspent by 100%. That was backfilled by the county budget. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you can go after the nickels and dimes that we give out as grants.
Right.
Right? And you might find something. What about the big bucks?
Right.
So you should take that up with Sylvia and Matt. It's a valid point. It's a valid point.
Yeah.
The seat side question, which you posed, Jim, it's, look, every year our budget director is supposed to do like an in-depth look to see what are we really spending our money on, and what position or what money do we have made up? In other words, is it allocated to positions for staffing that are not filled, but we allocate money for them and they're budgeted and aren't spent? How big of a chunk of the money allocated in the general fund is allocated to reserves that aren't spent, I'm proud that the city of San Jose is actually very lean with regards to staffing, with regards to how we do expenditures, and with regards to how but with regards to like a third party, like outside of the city coming in and saying, where are we spending our money?
It's not just where.
Yeah.
Is if you spend $1 million on transitional housing for homeless people, then you're overspending. Okay? Yeah. Is that an efficient way to do what you need to do? Or are we spending way more than we need to spend on something? Yeah, that's the efficacy. I get what you're saying. We're accounting for every nickel and dime. I get that. But if you're spending 4 times more on something than you should be because it's not efficient, that ain't good.
Yeah, that's
Okay, point taken. Point taken. Thank you.
Totally agree.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it.
Give Janet that letter. All right, that's something to take up directly with Mayor Mahan and your council member, and right now is a good time to be doing that because they will be debating the March budget letter, which was approved, but they're going to have a June budget authorization. So go beat them over the heads on it and say this, why are you wasting your money on this, that, or the other thing? Like, why don't we go down to 3 people on a fire station, for instance, which IBM recommended in 2012. And that was a third party came in and did exactly what you're talking about. They did analytics saying this is the police department, what you can do, which they said cut the size of the police department, which was a political non-starter. They said take the fire stations down to 3 people from 4 fire response, which for safety reasons the fire department chose not to do. They said go to the county and say, hey, MFers, you're not paying us nearly enough for the medical services we're providing. And the county said, neener, you're not hitting your metrics, right? So that's still a pissing contest going on now and again. So there's many things that, but anyway. With that introduction, Domingo, I give you our council person.
Pat, always the best introduction.
I work on it every day.
Okay, so as Pat alluded to, the council unanimously passed the mayor's budget message a couple weeks back. Look, the reality is we're in for some bumpy times, given the economic forecasts that we're seeing and the returns, or lack thereof, of the property tax revenues, the real estate transfer revenues. But, you know, the council last year, we put away a sizable chunk of dollars to help us address some of the deficit this year. So this year, we're okay. We're in an okay fiscal position. We're going to have to do some belt tightening, absolutely. And the direction we gave as a council to the city manager is make sure that we are looking at reducing any vacant positions that have not been filled in, you know, more than 2-3 years. See what kind of efficiencies we can make without affecting city services. And so we're going to get the proposed operating budget in the coming months. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for the community to weigh in. We have a budget message, a budget town hall. We did a budget town hall in January. We're going to have another budget town hall next month. And so we're beginning the long process of engaging residents and putting together an operating budget for our city. And I look forward to engaging with residents, DA Roundtable, and the community on the decisions ahead. With regards to our neighborhood, we have a cleanup or a dumpster day with the mayor and the Creekside Neighborhood Association happening on the 13th. So I encourage everybody to come out and if you need to throw away some stuff, we'll have dumpsters available. And then on the 20th, we have the Great American Litter Pickup. We're doing various sites throughout the district. Come out and create cleaner, safer, and stronger neighborhoods with residents. That's just at the top of my head. We're working on a few things. Raging Waters, I'm sure everybody's heard, is back. We're going to be hoping to have it ready by Memorial Day. So Memorial Day will have hopefully a ribbon cutting community celebration. And so we should have fun recreational activities in our own district. In addition to that, we also have a fireworks show at Lake Cunningham that my office is quarterbacking this summer. So details to come. We're going to have fireworks at Lake Cunningham this summer, hopefully. More details, hopefully, in the next meeting, the week after, or the meeting after. And music in the square activities at Evergreen Village Square to engage community members should be starting up back in May, and we're going to be partnering with the D8 Roundtable on hosting a few of those, if not all of them. And yeah, that's all for now. I can keep going, but it's getting close to 9 o'clock, and if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to stick around and chat.
Yeah, it was just about some good news on the fireworks. The music and movie at the park. Yeah, we're just sort of waiting because we want the calendar then. And I know it's going to be a little bit different perhaps this year because the village wants to pitch in a lot more money. So we kind of need to know where we stand as DA. We have allocated neighborhood association money towards that.
Perfect. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with some partners interested in so the question now is, do we make it twice a month or can we swing every Friday for the summer months? My goal would be to have it every Friday so we could give community residents something to look forward to every Friday. But if we can only swing second in the the last Friday of the month, given financial constraints, so that's the question we're pondering. But I think we should get together, Janet, you and I can just hammer out a couple dates and make them the D8 CRT sponsored dates and just calendar them. And that way we don't have to worry about what dates, and then we just get them on the calendar and we'll work around that. Fridays would probably be better.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
Just quickly to let you know, Thompson Creek seems to be getting bigger.
Yep.
As the homelessness problem continues. So from when we walked it months ago, it seems like they're
Yeah, no, first of all, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm actually walking there this weekend with a neighbor. We have some ideas on what to do because the problem's been getting ridiculously out of hand, and I'll talk to you afterwards. Yeah, no, they're damaging the riparian corridors. They're removing trees. I hear there's like illegal activity happening, drug sales. Folks are casing. That's unacceptable. So, my office is actively engaged on that to be able to do something about that. So.
Derek?
Yeah, it's Councilmember. You mentioned about the budget. So were there many cuts done? Were the cuts done evenly across the board, or was there certain areas that were cut the most? Could you explain a little bit about that?
Well, no cuts have been done yet because what we've provided is just direction to come to us with a balanced budget, which is what the city manager is going to do. The direction was to look at the balance in the budget in 4 ways. One is to look at vacancies, to look at not consolidation, well, efficient allocation of departments, or see what we can do with regards to efficiencies within the city manager's office and the structure. See if we can find efficiencies in there, and there was a strategy to do so. So we're gonna get the proposed budget in the coming months, and my goal as the council member for District 8 is whatever recommendations or whatever budget balancing we do comes at where we don't feel the effects of those decisions. That dumpster days and or beautify engagements happen in our community, and we don't see the ramifications of the decisions that we're making. And I mean, clearly, you know, I think we're not going to see any drastic cuts. That's my hope, knock on wood, given the decision that we made last year to stock away some money for this year to the tune of $17 million. So the $20 million deficit is going to be softened. But a cost pressure that we have comes from the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the pressures around making sure that the permit that we have with regards to our regulatory commitments to the federal and state governments with our discharge is met. So that's where the preliminary estimates comes to the tune of $25 million. And so compounded with the deficit that we're expected next year to tune of another $27 million, it comes to about $52.5 million deficit next year. So this year, I'm not so worried about major drastic cuts. The deep conversations are going to happen next year because we don't have that $17 million cushion that we had this year, and we're going to have the cost pressure associated with meeting our permit requirements under the Regional Water Quality Control Board permit with regards to discharge, and as we talked to earlier, the impacts associated with folks living along our creeks and waterways, if that makes sense. Yeah, so stay tuned. And I'm gonna have plenty of opportunities for you and for our residents to be able to engage directly and know exactly what the city manager is proposing to us as a council to be able to weigh these decisions, and also for me to hear from you on what you think is important. Because as I make these decisions, I want to hear from my neighbors on, you know, where we should focus, where we should look at making these investments, and how that plays out in the coming months.
So speaking of which, there is another engagement meeting, 2 more meetings for the Pleasant Hills. I think April
25th, I believe.
At YMCA.
Uh-huh.
And then a Zoom following that. Just FYI, we'll put it on our website.
Yeah, and thank you, Janet. The Pleasant Hills Golf Course visioning process, if you will, and the community engagement process for the future of Pleasant Hill, the former golf course at Pleasant Hills, is ongoing. We have our second meeting happening later this month. We're going to have an in-person option and then a virtual option 2 days after that. You know, the first meeting were really well attended, and we're hoping to continue that in the second meeting and have a robust dialogue on you know, what we want and what we expect as neighbors, as D8 residents, as stakeholders who live here, of what we would like to see there.